Today we're going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. Now, I'm going to show you the decimal way to multiply and divide rational numbers. However, if you prefer the fraction method and you would like to use your multiplying and dividing fraction rules, you're more than welcome to do so. A fraction is more exact than a decimal, and it's a little bit neater to work with. However, if you prefer using a calculator and the decimal method, you may do that as well. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to be able to change all of our numbers to the middleman there. So we want to change to decimals. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to change 1 divided by 2 is going to give us 1.5. We'll keep our 8, and 3/4, many of you have memorized, is 0.75. And then we'll multiply everything. 1.5 times 8 times 0.5 gives us a product of 9. 7/9, we'll divide that out. When we do, you're going to see that you get a repeating decimal. Go ahead and just leave that in your calculator so you don't have to retype it. Hit the multiply button, type in 3, make it negative, and you should get a product of negative 2.3 repeating. And in the last problem, we've got the fraction bar, which means we've got to multiply the numerator first, and then we're going to divide. So let's do that. 256.45, excuse me, times 4 is going to give us a product of 1025.8 all over negative 10. And then when we divide, we should get a quotient of negative 102.58. Now, if they ask you to write your product or your quotient as a fraction and you prefer to use the decimal method to multiply and divide, what you're going to have to do is remember your place value. So if you take a look, on the left side here are the whole numbers, then you have your decimal, and then you have your place value for your decimals. This is the tenths is 1 place out, hundredths is 2 place out, and the third place value is the thousandths. It continues on, however, most of our decimals won't go beyond the thousandths. So what we're going to do is we're going to write 3 and 625 thousandths as a fraction. So I'm going to keep my whole number, which is 3. I'm going to write the decimal as my numerator. And then the very last place value, you'll notice the 5 is in the thousandths place. That tells me what my denominator is. So I'll write 1,000. Now, I know I have to simplify that fraction. And I can start out with 5. I can start out with 10 if I wanted to. You're going to want to try, however, to make sure that you're getting a number or using a number that is going to go into both the numerator and the denominator evenly. If you want to try to look for the greatest common factor, you're more than welcome to. Most people can look at both of those and see that 25, which is not the greatest common factor, but that does start our simplification process. 25 goes into 625 25 times, and 25 goes into 1,000 40 times. Now we can see I still have 5 to simplify, and so my final solution, 25 goes into 5 times, and 5 goes into 40 8 times. So my final answer written as a fraction would be 3 5/8. Now, a really great thing to be able to do is to memorize some common fractions, and then that way when you see the decimal equivalent, you don't have to go through the simplification process. So for example, 1/3 would be 0.3 repeating. 2/3 is 0.6 repeating. So see if you can get the decimal equivalents. You're going to notice that some of the numbers or fractions that have the same denominator Their decimals are very similar. For example, all eighths go out to the thousandths place. You're going to notice that the ninths are all repeating decimals, and they repeat the number that is in the numerator because they are very close to the tenths place. So they're not quite a tenth, but they're close. So these are some good fractions to memorize if you ever see these decimals.